Well, hello everyone. Good morning. I should apologise probably initially for my tardiness in recent times. Had a few days off. Personal family business. Hope you don't mind. But normal service will resume this week. We have got the PinkUn Show returning on Wednesday night back at the Coach and Horses from 7 o'clock. So if you're in the vicinity, come along and join us. You can get yourself on the show. And of course this, Michael's Mardle 2. I am planning on numbering them all, but basically this is hopefully where I just talk to you for a little bit about some of the goings on we've had in the last few days, and we can do it on non-match days so that there's a little bit of an update around. But of course there's plenty of stuff too, and don't worry, you can leave a marking out of 10 in the comments, so make sure you give your rating 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 10 out of 10, whatever you want underneath. That's obviously a very good habit to get into. Anyway, so what's happened over the last few days? Well, the key one of course has been the accounts. It says probably they're out. You can catch them all on pinkun.com, and we've had loads of coverage in paper, and there's some excellent analysis too by David Freezer and Mark Armstrong on the PinkUn YouTube channel, so you can check that out. I think it probably says, well, it feels like the figures say what I've been writing for the last 2 years, and I think a lot of us have been saying over that period of time. As soon as Norwich missed out and looked like missing out on getting back to the Premier League, and from the moment you get relegated, you know the reality of what Norwich have therefore had to deal with. Probably the bit that caught me out was just how big the wage bill was in comparison to Championship wage bills for, since the beginning of time, or since people started counting. There will probably be more over the next few months that come up that are greater than Norwich's, specifically Aston Villa and Newcastle's, but still it says what a wasted opportunity really Norwich City's season last year was, in terms of missing out on promotion with the funding they had to try and do it. Obviously a lot of money about the payoffs too, and I think with Alec Neil and his entourage you probably can't do a lot about that, because that's how football works. And ultimately of course if money was a reason why they kept Alec on, it's therefore a bit of a shame that in the same set of accounts they still had to pay that off. Just make the decision in November, but we won't go over old ground again. More of an issue is the payoff for Jez Moxey, because that's £700,000 for someone you appointed 6 months ago. If that's not the definition of a bad recruitment decision, then I don't really know what is. You can, as I said, you've got the full analysis from David Freezer and Mark Armstrong. It's well worth having a watch. There's also some interviews that Ed Balls did, and just to be clear, I have no issue with what Norwich are doing at the moment. I really like it. I think it's really interesting. I like the multiculturalism involved around the football club. My only point I would make is the irony between Ed Balls and the Norwich board not countenancing searching for investment, whether it's there or not, because they want to be a locally run community club and have that local ethos, and then doing that by bringing fairly cheap people from Germany, be it players or coaching staff, obviously very talented people too. There is just an irony there in terms of how that recruitment compares to the fact that Norwich won't countenance necessarily going out to look for investment because of the framework they have now. Just an irony, that's all it is. Okay, so loads of stuff in the accounts, and of course that's going to rumble on, and the AGM will be coming up this month too. It does tie in with the other big story, of course, James Maddison being called up for the Under-21s. I think even the man himself would probably have expected that to have come sooner. It's remarkable he hasn't been involved in the England setup up until this point. He may well have to wait to feature. I'm getting that impression, but he has to go away to Ukraine with the Under-21s in the international break, and he's got to go away immediately. I think he's joining up with the squad straight after finishing up with Norwich on Saturday at Bolton. So he's not going to get a rest, but it'll be a great experience for him. He may not well feature, as I said, because he's just being drafted in for now, and they'll have a good look at him, but he's the kind of player who you just think when people see him close quarters, they'll realise just how good he is and what they can do with him. Also, I have to say, it's absolutely typical Norwich that they recruit a player like this who's got so much potential, and then they have to kind of get rid of him a little bit early than they would like to because of financial reasons. And as we've just told you, all the account stories, you've seen it all. If Norwich get a big offer for a Premier League club who are willing to pay out and believe he can make the step, Norwich may well, regardless of whether they need to sell, have to consider that and may well have to accept it. And what that would do in terms of the dynamic for the football club would be very difficult, and obviously we'd hope that they wouldn't. it just would be, you just wish that Norwich would get these recruitment decisions right when they've got money and they're in the Premier League, as opposed to them coming to fruition when they haven't got any money and they get backed out of it. I've been around this club a long time. It's happened quite a lot, sadly. But obviously great news for James Maddison, and all of Norwich City fans will be watching him to see how he gets on, of course. Today it's presser day. Lunchtime, we'll head over to Colney to catch the latest with Daniel Farker and whichever player we get to speak to. I think the players are probably travelling up this afternoon. We'll be travelling up in the morning, and me, Paddy and Dave will have loads for you over at PinkUn.com in the build-up. I should flag up David Freeze's nice bit, doing my best James Richardson impression. By the way, what a pun in terms of his Dele Alli commentaries the other day. Dave Freeze has done a lovely bit in today's Eastern Daily Press about the potential... You can see that, the potential record-breaking afternoon Norwich could have on the road at Bolton. Their away form has been very good. He's also looked back at what happened in 1956-57 season when Norwich were at financial crisis point. Not quite there yet, as Dave himself says. There's always been a worse time. But really good read, some great stuff, and of course talking about what happens ahead of this weekend too. So give that a look if you're going to catch a copy of today's Eastern Daily Press. And in terms of the game, of course, Norwich, you could say in some ways it's an ideal game for Norwich to have, because they are going to a struggling side who, while they've been picked up in form, really Norwich should have too much for them, even away from home, and Norwich are in great form away from home. It suits them, as opposed to playing at Carrow Road at the moment. Likewise, if Norwich aren't on it, if they still feel tired, if they haven't recovered, and I think they've had a couple of days off actually, or certainly one day at least, since the Wolves game. But if they aren't refreshed and they still look leggy and they're willing for the international break to arrive, they will get bullied and they might well get turned over. So it'll be really fascinating, because I think this game on Saturday we'll have 2 weeks to talk about it, but it sets a tone. I think if Norwich can get back to winning ways, at least we know where the equilibrium is. What we don't want is to start having a terrible run of form, great run of form, and then a terrible run of form again, and you've got to readdress some of the issues you had before. So it'll be really interesting. We'll see how the injuries are. We know the injuries are going to ease slightly after the international break, fingers crossed, but of course we've got one more game to go, and Norwich can't really afford to have anyone else out injured. Hopefully everyone came through the Wolves game okay. So we will of course bring you all the updates at Colney and afterwards, and myself and Paddy will bring you up to date and full speed with what happened at Colney at lunchtime. That will all be this afternoon at PinkUn.com, on the PinkUn YouTube channel. You know where to get us by now, and of course all our Twitter handles too. Until then, enjoy your morning and make the most of it, and we will be back in about lunchtime.